Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a seriously fascinating journey that takes us from rigid, concrete city architecture all the way into the wild, romantic folklore of the Romanian countryside. We're tagging along with two characters, Lika and Lazuka, charting their path from the bustling heart of Bucharest straight into the enchanting arms of nature. Let's kick things off with this brilliant little philosophical observation from our main guy, Lika. He says this to Lazuka as they watch their city's landscape changing, and honestly, it sets the exact tone for all the transformations we're about to dive into. It poses a really thought-provoking question we'll keep coming back to. Does imposing human structure onto the world actually make it better, or does it just make it more restricted? Part 1. Domes, Ideology, and Architecture. Our journey gets started right in the heart of Bucharest on Campineanu Street, where Lika and Lazuka are strolling past the brand-new Communist Party Congress Hall. Lika makes this really sharp, neutral observation about the massive sky blue dome right in front of them. He points out that whether it's the imposing dome of the Communist Hall, the towering mitras under St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, or even that absolutely massive dome Hitler's architect planned for Berlin, which, to put it into perspective, was meant to hold 180,000 people, the architecture itself is a tool. These massive domes are literally designed to impose belief systems over the masses below them. They force this very rigid, top-down structure onto humanity. Part 2. Tram rides and payday wives. So, leaving that grand ideological architecture behind, our duo hops onto a creaky wooden tram number 10, giving us a really stark, immediate picture of mid-20th century class divides. Now, what's really wild here is how a mere 5 bani difference completely shifts your entire sensory world. For 30 bani, you get first class, veined passengers, freshly washed socks, very proper. But for 25 bani in the second class carriage where our characters actually find themselves, you are hit with a total wall of reality. We're talking 3-day beards, tin teeth, the heavy smell of garlic, dirty laundry, and passengers lugging nets full of leeks and literal live chickens. It's the raw, chaotic energy of the working class completely contrasting those pristine domes of the ruling elite we just talked about. As the tram pulls up to a stop, they spot a massive crowd of women waiting right outside the Grivița factory. At first glance, it kind of looks like a huge political demonstration, which prompts Lazuka to ask a really crucial question. Why are all these women swarming the gates? Well, Lika explains that this gathering isn't a political protest at all. Actually, it's a highly tactical payday maneuver to intercept what's called the cenzina. This is the fixed mid-month wage the workers get. The term actually comes from the French word quinze, meaning 15. These women are the house mothers, the ones keeping their families afloat, and they are out here on a mission. The real kicker is why they have to intercept these pay bags right at the factory gate. Because if they didn't, those wages would vanish almost instantly. Lika paints this incredibly vivid picture for us. Without this interception, the husbands would sneak off like eels into the neighborhood pubs. That hard-earned cenzicnita would just disappear into clay jugs of wine, backgammon tournaments, Russian razor blades, and a thick fog of cheap marisheshti or Karpat cigarettes. It's this daily grind of survival mixed with these small, fleeting pleasures. Part 3. The Tragic Tale of Brancoveniu. Our couple steps off the tram at the outskirts of the city and heads toward the red bricks of Mogoșoaia Palace, moving us right from working-class realities into the heavy, tragic weight of Romanian history. Lazuka, playing the historian for a moment, points out the palace's really unique architectural blend. Finished in 1702 after just 4 years of construction, it mixes Tuscan Renaissance style with very strong Ottoman influences. And this design perfectly mirrors the incredibly complex geopolitical balancing act of its creator, Constantine Brâncoveanu. The man was constantly trying to appease multiple rival empires all at once. But man, that balancing act builds to a truly horrific climax. Despite all his political maneuvering and that Ottoman-influenced architecture, Brâncoveanu couldn't save himself from the Sultan's wrath. Because he refused to renounce his Orthodox faith and convert to Islam, on his 60th birthday, he was forced by the Sultan in Constantinople to watch the beheading of his 4 sons and his son-in-law, right before being executed himself. It's a brutal reminder that rigid power structures, like empires and sultans, ultimately bring pain, which beautifully ties right back to Lika's earlier point about history not always being more beautiful afterwards. Part 4. A Theatrical Culinary Performance. All right, leaving that heavy history behind, the evening brings Lika and Lazuka
deep into the surrounding oak forest, where the tone completely shifts. They stumble upon an absolute marvel of gastronomy and entertainment.
They discover a place called Hanuku Prepalak. Picture this setup. It's a wondrous restaurant where the dining tables aren't even on the ground. Instead, they're perched on these circular wooden balconies built 3 meters up into the massive oak trees. You've got athletic waiters literally climbing vertical wooden ladders to serve feasts to the guests up in the canopy, while a folk ensemble in traditional white dress sets up in the clearing below. The concrete city is totally gone. We are now fully immersed in nature. And the synergy unfolding down below is incredible. The grill maestro, this small, explosive guy in a chef's hat, syncs his cooking perfectly with the live music from Maestro Buddhist Johnny's folk band. First, he slowly grills sausages to a steady song about a tired carriage horse called the postwagon. Then, as the tempo speeds up into a galloping dream sequence, he flips the meats like a graceful ballerina. Finally, as the band launches into the frantic sarbatons, he starts using his heavy iron tongs and pokers as actual percussion instruments, banging on the grill and flicking perfectly cooked sausages directly onto the waiters' plates mid-dance. It's just pure, joyous, unbridled energy. Part 5. Basil, Magic, and Romance. Eventually, that frantic energy from the grill fades into this intoxicating, magical atmosphere as the evening deepens, and the famous singer Maria Tanase steps up to perform. As Maria sings these enchanting lyrics, the whole narrative just slows down. The entire restaurant is completely captivated by her fiery soul. She sings about adorning her hair with basil to become charming and irresistible. It's a song steeped in old-world folklore, where nature actually has a direct, magical influence on human passion. Inspired by the magnetic pull of the music, our couple kind of just slips away from the crowded restaurant. They wander off into the natural world, completely leaving behind the concrete architecture, the factory gates, and all those rigid societal rules of the city. They find themselves in this peaceful lakeside field that is just totally covered in wild, purple-flowering basil. As Maria Tanase's voice carries through the trees, singing, "I Still Believe in Magic," the folkloric power of the basil actually begins to manifest in reality. Lika gently adorns Lazuka with the purple basil flowers, placing them in her hair and on her skin. The boundary between the folklore of the song and their actual reality just completely dissolves right there. And that uninhibited, magical freedom of the song manifests in their actions. Casting off their clothes into the hawthorn and willow branches, the moment becomes highly symbolic. By shedding these layers out there among the daisies and dandelions, they are literally and figuratively shedding the trappings of society. The gray suits, the factory lines, the imposing domes. They are returning to a state of pure, natural freedom. Maria's final verses echo through the night, seamlessly blending the sensory experience of the folklore directly with Alika and Lazuka's romantic encounter. "I still believe in miracles," she sings, elevating their connection into something completely timeless and mystical. And with that, our chronological journey is totally complete. We've moved entirely away from the rigid ideological rules of concrete domes and the grueling monotony of factory lines, all the way to the absolute ultimate freedom of nature and love. Kneeling in the wild grass, their embrace under the night sky is a beautiful, poetic resolution. They are completely transformed by the magic of the oaks and the wild basil. I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Throughout this whole story, we've seen how society constantly tries to structure us, whether it's through grand architecture, class divides, or daily economic grinds. But when we strip all of that away, what magic are we truly capable of finding in the wild? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, may you go out there and find your own field of wild basil.